To know more about this booming industry and its potential, I'm in conversation with Rajan Navani, who's the president of Indian digital gaming ecosystem and the founder and CEO of Jet Synthesis. Hi Rajan, welcome to ET Now Hangouts. It's a pleasure to have you in the studio today.
Likewise, great to be here with you today.
Rajan, let's talk about the gaming industry in India, the online gaming industry. It has seen a significant shift, in fact, finally getting recognized as a sport. It has transitioned from just being a hobby to a thriving industry. In India alone, it is likely to touch like 100 odd million by FY28. Now, as a leading player, as one of the leading players in the market, give us a sense of the opportunity that it holds, in the future.
No, I think, when one looks back at video gaming in particular, it's a 50-year-old global industry, right? But in India, people never bought consoles, never had PCs. So in India, really the revolution with video gaming has only started with the penetration of the mobile phones.
Absolutely.
So, while we might say that it's a much smaller industry, I think what you're referring to as a 100 million industry is the esports industry, which is really the best players of various video games. The video gaming industry is at about $1 billion. But, to quantify that, $1 billion of a $180 billion global industry is significantly small. But if you look at the number of gamers, nearly 17% of the Android gamers, for example, are from India. So it's a very big difference between the opportunity as to what one could look at from in India potential to what really is happening. But this is all scaled very recently, right? Especially in the last decade. And I still remember when we started out, there were 80 million gamers. We used to say 80 or 90 million gamers when we set up the Indian Digital Gaming Society and Jet Synthesis, which we are building now, to about over 500 million gamers today. So I think there has been a substantial jump, and this industry is now poised for significant growth. And the esports part, which you referred to, which we also pioneered in India, and today between different entities, nearly 80-90% of that opportunity size, we've helped create for India. That piece particularly has now begun to take shape because, as video gaming is recognized as a sport, and the Olympics have now announced the Olympic esports, we will actually find players from India competing for a medal for your country, right? In a sport that is, which never existed. And it's interesting and it's unique because the skills you need to become great at any sport is exactly the same here, right? So it's a very interesting cross-section where we are, and I think from here, it only gets brighter as we move forward.
Right. But what happens when the government announces a 28% GST on online gaming? How has the industry taken it? I mean, of course, you are specifically in video games, and I don't know how much has that impacted the video games business?
The video gaming industry, the esports industry is not impacted at all. I think the 28% GST has applied more to the real money gaming, the fantasy gaming, which was, a large part of what people did, on mobile, because different states treat that subject differently. In some states it has been banned, and therefore it came up as a, GST issue. And what I see is that, there is some discussions going on currently, but, we are not part of that industry, but definitely that has been, a narrative that has, in some way, when you use the word gaming, because people were not clear right? What is video gaming? What is esports? Versus what is, other types of real money and fantasy gaming. So I think there was some clutter, but I see that now clearing out, hopefully as we move forward.
So tell us, in the growth for this industry, what is the role that policymakers can play? Or going ahead, how should they look at this whole space, this whole buzzing industry? In fact, PM Modi met one of the top gamers in the industry, and that underscores how the government is also now taking cognizance of the fact that this industry is thriving and booming, and probably taking a lot of interest in the development of it.
See, India is a young country. Right? We have 1 in 11 people in the world is an Indian under the age of 25.
Right.
Video gaming, sports, esports is a direct link passion to a large part of that community. It's just because of the way it is today, right? I mean, we see digital devices and all of that which is there. So when we look at where people are being pulled into and actually want to participate and create, livelihoods. As you must have seen, many of them have become not only top level gamers, they're also creating livelihoods as content creators, for the space, because there are people who are, watching them and hearing them and, appreciating what they are doing. So if you see that journey, I think the entire video gaming and esports industry is going to impact the economy in multiple ways. Besides being aligned with the passions, it's also an industry that creates jobs of various kinds. So, to create a video game, not only do you need engineering skills, you need great art skills, you need animation skills, you need video effects skills, you need, design economy skills, you need, product design skills, multiple skill sets. And, today for as I said, $180 billion global industry, India can become a massive supply chain. So if you ask me, the biggest opportunity that lies ahead for India is the creation of jobs in this space. So how do we better skill our workforce to be able to become active participants of the global supply chain in creation of video games, right? Because that itself is, as I said, a massive industry, which is by itself. As the top funnel, where we have casual games and mid-core games and different types of games, are played, there is a whole section of emerging athletes, as you met, esports that have come up, which lends itself to an entire sports ecosystem. So you will have casters, you will have production guys, you will have players, you have the arenas, you have the media rights, you have everything else that goes with any other sport. Again, creating multiple jobs, along the way. So I think if one were to look at gaming and esports as one linked vertical, where, on the top of the funnel, you have 500 million people who play casual games, play games, and, the top 100, 200 become the best in those games, and they will in some way represent India. So I'm only taking gaming and esports out of and keeping, online gaming, the real money out, or even in the AVGC sector, as we call it, keeping animation and VFX out, because those are largely B2B. Mainly catering to, larger businesses, doing things for Hollywood, etc., where also things are changing today. You know about the Hollywood strike that happened. It's a tough industry that is becoming, increasingly difficult to operate in. And I think Indian industry is beginning to understand and appreciate that. So at CII, for example, at the Confederation of Indian Industry, which actually led the formation of the Indian Digital Gaming Society initially, which I'm the president of, the Media and Entertainment National Council this time has actually, I'm co-chairing it along with, someone who's from the digital side for Geo, and actually looking someone from Tata who's taking the digital narrative ahead. So I think it's content plus technology coming together for millions that are going to change the way India is going to, reshape this industry. And I think what it's going to also do is create a big impact globally. Because, the cost arbitrage that we have, the ability that we have to get scale, is very different. And our content creation capabilities are anyway very good. So in gaming, what is missing is great IPs from India, because those are the ones that create value. Like we have India's only esports game, called Real Cricket. We have a 65% global market share in in-app purchases. And this is an esports game from India, which is based on cricket. The sport is different. Because to be the best in real cricket, you don't need a bat, you don't need a ball, you need great hand-eye coordination skills, you need, different team things. And there also we've created the largest league, like Global E-Cricket Premier League. So like any sport you see, we see the potential of great content, IPs created from India, leading into esports, etc., can become a big way for India to position itself in the future. So, as I said earlier, truly excited about these opportunities that can get created. And the moment we see government understanding and appreciating that, I think the value creation of this industry, the employability, of this industry will be huge. And this will truly be made in India. Not only for India, but for the world. Yeah, so I am pretty excited, and I think this narrative is now beginning to set in.
Set in, correct. Two things that I could take away from this. I'll come to the first one, which is mobile. If you look at the data, mobile contributes around 90% of the entire global, esports industry, and it is like, I think 20% Indian mobile contributes 20% of the total mobile gaming downloads that happen in the world. So, and that is probably because of the kind of cheap data that you get in India, and also the smartphone penetration in India that has taken place, which has democratized the internet. With now 5G coming into the picture, how is that likely to accelerate growth and also the scalability of this?
No, so I think 5G is already set in.
Set in, yeah.
We are now talking of even 6G.
6G,
right?
of course,
and
yeah.
you think about computing capacity of the phones itself.
Absolutely.
That is becoming better. So we are very bullish because, what you see really driving gaming and especially monetization in India is a lot of multiplayer engagement.
Right.
So, where the lag, etc., will reduce significantly.
That will reduce significantly.
Yeah. So now if you get much better bandwidth,
right.
the all of that will help enhance the quality of gameplay. The moment you're able to enhance quality of gameplay, you're going to have greater engagement and preferably and hopefully greater monetization. Because today, someone used to spend money earlier to go and watch a movie in a theater. That budget for entertainment is going to move somewhere if people are not going that often, right? Yeah. Or they're spending more time on their digital devices, and we are seeing that trend. So a lot of spends are now happening on digital platforms. Yeah. And gaming is definitely one area where we will find gamers, invest more to own assets in the virtual world and actually use that to become not only, better performers in whatever they do, but also it becomes a social status for them. Right. Because, today a lead gamer somewhere, can wear a particular kind of a skin, and do that. So good part about gaming, Ankita, is that there is a two-way interaction. Right? Unlike a broadcast or somewhere where you don't know how much is the engagement, here we know that the person is fully engaged. So in real cricket, for example, we have about 15 million people who will play our game, every week for 1 hour. We took the top 200,000, put them into a league, got the top 100, drafted them into teams, exactly like any other sport. And many of them come from the grassroots of India. Right. So I think once the government understands and appreciates this entire ecosystem, I think we can have a far greater success in this. And we did meet Minister Vaishnav, recently. And I think both these aspects of greater job creation, as well as make in India, from India, for India and for the world are two very strong themes that the government's also aligned with.
Also, tell us about the advertiser interest. How has that shifted, from earlier on to now? You said that the real engagement can be measured and advertisers go where the eyeballs go, right? So tell us about the advertiser interest that's coming in.
Yeah, so we have seen a big jump in advertiser interest because today it's very hard to read this generation. I mean, you and I both know, when you interact with Gen Zs, it's so hard to reach them. Let alone build trust with them. So, but when you're doing something that is aligned around their passions, you're catering to them, in a way you're telling them, we understand you. We understand what your interests are. We understand what you like. And if I am offering a brand an opportunity to interact with that person, that consumer is looking at us as a trusted person who knows what brands we can bring to them. Right. So I think brands have now started to realize that. Right. While there are, especially technology brands have always been at the forefront of this, and you've seen companies like Nvidia, become trillion-dollar companies on the back of, gaming CPUs, right? I mean, which has been there now with AI and all, is just getting more enhanced. Right. So this generation of consumers, which is the future, as well as the largest employable workforce, as we go forward, I think are probably the best to be targeted by advertisers and consumers. And now we are seeing large number of consumer brands also, using, video gaming and esports as a medium to reach out to these consumers. And this jump is quantitatively and qualitatively happening at a much, much larger pace. So I would say anywhere between 60 to 80% year on year, larger spends in those areas, and large number of new brands coming in to use this as a medium. And I think it will only, kind of accelerate in the years to come.
Right. So let's talk about innovation and the disruption called AI. How prepared are you to leverage technology coupled with great content to, for the metaverse that we are eventually all going to live in?
When some people say that, in some way we are all living in a metaverse.
Living in a metaverse already.
if you go to Indian Truth and Spirituality, they'll say, oh, this is all Maya. This itself is a metaverse.
Yeah.
Right? But the beauty about the cross-section of what we call mixed reality.
Yeah.
See, there is augmented reality that enhances the real experiences. Right. There's virtual reality that puts you into a particular world. Yeah. Our bet is that the future is about mixed reality.
Okay.
To a certain generation, a digital always generation, their interactions in that digital world, their social standing there, their clothes that they wear, their avatars wear, is as important, if not more important, than what they actually wear physically. They might take a break from there, eat some food, and go back because your human body needs sustainability.
Food, yeah.
And there are others who are living in this generation and, leveraging into digital as needed. I think the world is converging towards something called a mixed reality. So you can move between multiverses. What happened earlier with the whole rise in crypto was that the economy also moved to the digital world, right? And it moved so fast, right? And at such a rapid pace that it had no option but to kind of, get corrected, right? So, but when the money from the real world moved there, you realize that there is an economy, right? And if you look at video gaming, it's interesting because video gaming always had AI as a part of it. Because 50 years ago, when you must have played Atari or something, I don't know if I was at least not even a
Super
kid.
Mario.
Yeah, all
this.
You always brought a person to a level where, I challenged you a little more than what you could play so that you could then up your game, right? In a game, you're always competing with the player. Right. So AI was needed to do that. Right. I mean, I worked with NASA in the mid-90s, and that time we were using AI to look at farmlands and be able to predict how much corn will go. So AI has actually been there now for a long time. What we are seeing emerge as a technology trend today is what we call generative AI, where we are able to take all of this intelligence, look at multiple data points, derive the intelligence, and now predict the next future actions that are going to happen from everyone. So what that is actually doing to the gaming industry is actually going to make a big shift, in the way games will get created, for example, right? Today you can just mention, I'm in a studio, I need a green wall, I need a blue, I don't need an artist working for 8 hours to do that, right? And we create virtual worlds. Now AI is making those disruptive changes. So it's going to affect the way games are made, the way games are going to be, delivered, the amount of augmented intelligence that people will have to improve their efficiency. So something that could be done by 4 people today can be done with 1 person with, with a chat GPT input because you're able to, do more with less, right? And I think that curve is only going to improve. So it's definitely going to affect in gaming, and therefore you're seeing somewhere around the world, there are a lot of job cuts, etc. happening in this industry because, people are not able to predict, what of those areas will get automated and which areas you will need. But still, you will still need game design capabilities because the creative elements are going to be hard. Economy can become more predictable. User acquisition is again getting automated. Consumers' behavior is getting more predictable by being able to understand them better. So there are multiple points, right from mixed reality to metaverses to all of these areas where AI is going to be a big disruptor. And I think that has already begun to happen. And I'm a firm believer that, while AI will disrupt many things, it will also create manifold new opportunities.
And thank you so much for taking the time out and coming to the studio. It was a pleasure to have you.
No, thank you for having me. Thank you.